As winter draws to a close, let's dive into the preliminary analysis of the 2024/2025 season. This winter, we've seen a significant low-pressure area dominating the northeastern United States and southeastern Canada, paired with a high-pressure zone over the west coast. This setup has created a persistent northerly flow, ushering in colder air from the polar regions. The pressure difference between these systems has been striking, intensifying that cold air mass. The temperature analysis reveals a colder than normal winter across much of the northern, central, and eastern United States, as well as southwestern Canada. While some weeks were warmer, the overall trend shows a notable chill. This 3-month average highlights just how impactful this winter has been, reminding us of the powerful forces at play in our atmosphere. Spring 2025 is just around the corner, and the weather is gearing up for some interesting dynamics thanks to La Niña's grip on the jet stream. As we transition from winter to summer, we can expect a mix of weather patterns across the United States and Canada. The Pacific high-pressure system is setting the stage, creating pressure anomalies that will influence our weather significantly. With a low-pressure zone lingering over Canada, colder air will remain close by, making for a chilly start to March. This winter has shown us a dominant low-pressure area in the northeast, paired with a high-pressure zone on the west coast, resulting in a persistent northerly flow. As we dive into the meteorological spring, the oceanic La Niña event is coming back to life, promising to shape our weather patterns throughout March, April, and May. Buckle up for a spring filled with surprises. This winter, northern and eastern Canada and the western United States are experiencing warmer than normal temperatures, a trend that aligns with the La Niña pattern. When we dive into precipitation data, it's clear that the northwest and parts of the east and south are getting more rain, while the southwestern United States Central Plains, southeastern United States, and parts of the upper Midwest are facing a significant dry spell. In fact, much of the southwestern United States has seen less than 15% of its normal precipitation over the last 3 months. As for snowfall, which we track from October 1st, this season has brought snow to many areas, even reaching the deep south coast. It's a fascinating winter, marked by extremes that remind us of the ever-changing climate patterns we're witnessing. As we dive into March, brace yourselves for a dramatic weather shift. A cold air mass is set to plunge into the eastern and northeastern United States, driven by a powerful low-pressure system. This could mean temperatures plummeting 15 to 25 degrees below normal for many in the northeast. Meanwhile, the northern United States and southern Canada will experience a contrasting warm-up thanks to a high-pressure ridge, signaling an early taste of spring. Looking at the snowfall forecast, we can expect a significant belt of snow stretching from southern Canada through the upper Midwest and into the Northeast. Additionally, the western half of the United States and Canada will see some snowfall in higher elevations. So, while some regions are gearing up for winter's finale, others are ready to welcome an early spring wave. Stay tuned for how this all unfolds. March and spring weather patterns are gearing up to be significantly influenced by a strong La Niña event in the Pacific Ocean. This cold ocean anomaly has been intensifying over the past couple of months, and its effects will ripple across the United States and Canada as we transition into meteorological spring. Take a look at the ocean temperature anomalies. Those colder than normal waters in the tropical Pacific are a clear sign of La Niña, driven by robust trade winds. This phenomenon is part of the larger ENSO cycle, which alternates between cold and warm phases, each bringing its own unique weather impacts globally. Current forecasts suggest that La Niña will persist at least into early spring, but its atmospheric influence can linger even longer, especially in North America. So, as we move forward, expect some interesting twists in our spring weather, all thanks to this powerful oceanic driver. Jet stream changes play a crucial role in our precipitation patterns, especially during La Niña season. We typically see increased rainfall in the Pacific Northwest and the eastern United States, while the southern states experience a drier spell due to a weaker subtropical jet. This creates a fascinating divide across the country. Think of it as two weather poles. In the north, we often face colder, wetter conditions with storm systems guided by the jet stream. This year, with a weak La Niña, we can expect significant snowfall across much of the northern United States and southern Canada. The Pacific Northwest usually sees peak snowfall in its higher elevations. States like North Dakota, Nebraska, and Minnesota often enjoy snowier winters during these weak La Niña years. Meanwhile, the northeastern United States also gets its fair share of snow, but the southern regions are left wanting. While the graphic we're looking at covers January to March, the La Niña influence remains consistent from winter into spring, although snowfall amounts do taper off as we transition into the warmer months. Spring 2025 is shaping up to be quite interesting for North America. The European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecast pressure pattern is showing a classic La Niña high-pressure system in the North Pacific, which is leading to a low-pressure zone over Canada. This setup means that colder air from Western Canada could push south into the United States, depending on how the pattern evolves. As we move into spring, the southern ridge is gaining strength, often bringing an early wave of warmth to the southern United States. The temperature forecast indicates that while the northwestern United States and much of Canada will see normal temperatures, the western United States is expected to experience much above normal warmth. However, as we shift eastward, that warmth starts to taper off. In the central U.S., don't be surprised if you encounter some colder snaps and even snow early in the season due to these shifting jet stream patterns. Overall, though, the southern and eastern parts of the country are likely to bask in warmer than normal temperatures this spring. It's a dynamic season ahead. The North American Precipitation Anomaly Forecast reveals a classic La Niña pattern, significantly impacting weather across Canada and the United States. Expect wetter conditions in the Pacific Northwest and the East, while the southwestern and southeastern regions brace for drier spells. This shift in precipitation, combined with colder temperatures, will influence snowfall potential as we head into early spring. For the March to May period, anticipate below normal snowfall across the western and northern United States. In contrast, western and central Canada, along with the northwestern United States, are likely to see above normal snowfall, primarily driven by weather patterns in March and early April. This La Niña effect is shaping up to create a fascinating spring season with unique weather dynamics at play. The North American Precipitation Anomaly Forecast reveals a classic La Niña pattern impacting Canada and the United States. This means we're looking at wetter conditions in the Pacific Northwest and the East, while the southwestern and southeastern regions brace for drier weather. Coupled with colder temperatures, this will significantly influence snowfall potential as we head into early spring. For the March to May period, expect less snowfall than usual across the western and northern United States. However, don't overlook the forecast for above normal snowfall stretching from western and central Canada down into the northwestern United States. Much of the snow will likely result from the weather patterns we see in March and early April. Stay tuned for a detailed breakdown of the snowfall potential month by month this spring. The United Kingdom Meteorological Organization Spring Season Forecast brings some intriguing insights, especially when compared to the European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts model. Both models align over the North Pacific, indicating a high-pressure system which boosts our confidence in the predictions. Interestingly, while there are no clear low-pressure anomalies, we do see a low-pressure zone forming over Canada, echoing the European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts findings, along with a ridge over the south-central United States. This southern ridge is a familiar visitor each spring, typically stronger during La Niña years. The temperature forecast reveals a La Niña-like pattern, with colder temperatures lingering over western Canada and potentially dipping into the northwestern United States. However, the rest of the country appears free from cold anomalies, likely due to the primary low-pressure zone being positioned further west. This dynamic interplay of pressure systems and temperature patterns sets the stage for an intriguing spring ahead. Warmer than normal weather is dominating the southern United States, while a noticeable gap in this warmth is emerging in the central regions, hinting at cold fronts sweeping in from the northwest. Meanwhile, the precipitation forecast reveals drier than normal conditions in the southwest and along the southern coast. In contrast, the northern and eastern parts are expected to see above-average precipitation, largely influenced by La Niña. When we look at snowfall data for March through May, both United Kingdom Meteorological Organization and European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecast models show increased snowfall over Canada, extending into the northwestern United States. However, most of the country is projected to experience below normal snowfall this spring. This trend is particularly evident in the southern half and the northeastern United States, likely influenced by lower snowfall in April and May. The latest official spring temperature outlook from the CPC indicates colder to equal chances in the north, while the southern and eastern regions are leaning towards warmer than normal conditions. This sets the stage for an interesting spring ahead. As winter draws to a close, let's dive into the preliminary analysis of the 2024/2025 season. This winter, we've seen a significant low-pressure area dominating the northeastern United States and southeastern Canada, paired with a high-pressure zone over the west coast. This setup has created a persistent northerly flow, ushering in colder air from the polar regions. The pressure difference between these systems has been striking, intensifying that cold air mass. The temperature analysis reveals a colder than normal winter across much of the northern, central, and eastern United States, as well as southwestern Canada. While some weeks were warmer, the overall trend shows a notable chill. This 3-month average highlights just how impactful this winter has been, reminding us of the powerful forces at play in our atmosphere. The official spring outlook is in, and it's shaping up to be quite interesting across the United States. In the northern regions, we're looking at colder temperatures or equal chances, while the southern half and the eastern states are gearing up for a warmer than normal season. It's fascinating to see that central United States area of equal probability, hinting at the cold air's likely path from the northwestern United States and western Canada. Now, let's talk precipitation. The forecast indicates a higher chance of more rain in the eastern United States, especially across the Ohio Valley and the Pacific Northwest. Meanwhile, the southwestern U.S. is bracing for a drier than normal spring. So, whether you're planning outdoor activities or just keeping an eye on the weather, it's crucial to stay informed about these patterns. Spring is just around the corner, and it promises to be a season of contrasts. As we approach the end of the meteorological winter season, let's dive into the preliminary analysis for 2024/2025. This winter has been marked by a notable pressure anomaly, with a dominant low-pressure area over the northeastern United States and southeastern Canada. This setup, paired with a high-pressure zone over the west coast, has created a persistent northerly flow, ushering in colder air from the polar regions. The stronger the pressure difference between these systems, the more intense the northerly flow, resulting in a colder mass. Analyzing the temperature data reveals a winter that's been colder than normal across much of the northern, central, and eastern U.S., as well as southwestern Canada. While there were certainly warmer weeks sprinkled throughout, the overall trend shows a significant chill this season. It's fascinating to see how these atmospheric dynamics play out, shaping our winter experience. This February, we're in for a proper spring wave, bringing a taste of warmer weather across much of the United States and parts of southern Canada. In about 10 days, we'll see most of the snow cover melting away, except for the Rockies, the upper Midwest, and the northeastern United States, where winter will hold on a bit longer. But don't get too comfortable. After this brief spring interlude, a new Polar Express is on the way. As we head into the first week of March, a low pressure system is set to sweep into eastern Canada and the eastern United States, ushering in a cold air mass from the north. This pattern feels all too familiar, reminiscent of the past couple of months. Expect colder air pooling over southeastern Canada, making its way into the upper Midwest and the eastern United States. Meanwhile, the central and western regions will enjoy the stability of high pressure. So, while we might get a taste of spring, winter is far from over. Looking ahead to the end of next week, we're in for quite a weather shift. A significant mass of cold air is making its way down from southern Canada, spreading across much of the eastern and central United States. This is happening right as we step into meteorological spring, reminding us that nature doesn't always follow the calendar. If we take a closer look at the snowfall potential, the upper Midwest and northeastern United States are gearing up for the main snow belt. However, keep in mind this is just a single run forecast, so things could change. It gives us a glimpse into what might be on the horizon. Interestingly, as this cold air moves in, it tends to be drier, which can limit snowfall to the moisture available. That's why we're only seeing potential snowfall in northern Texas and Oklahoma, where the colder air meets enough moisture from the south. It's a fascinating dance of weather patterns, reminding us how dynamic our atmosphere can be. As we dive deeper into March, the medium and extended range ensemble forecasts reveal some intriguing trends. By the end of the first week, we can expect a low pressure area to expand across southern Canada and the United States. This shift is accompanied by a resurgence of high pressure in the North Pacific, which could usher in a colder northerly flow across the United States. The surface temperature forecast indicates a significant cold air mass settling over much of the country, with southeastern Canada also feeling the chill, thanks to that low pressure influence. However, it's important to note that this ensemble forecast suggests a weaker anomaly, hinting at some variability. When we look at a single-run ECMWF forecast, it paints a clearer picture of this cold air spreading widely, while a warm anomaly stubbornly lingers over western Canada. It's a fascinating interplay of weather systems that we'll be watching closely. As we dive into the second week of March, we're witnessing a significant low-pressure trend sweeping across Canada and the upper United States. This broad low-pressure area is setting the stage for a persistent northerly flow that could dominate our weather patterns. Temperatures are reflecting this shift, with cold air firmly gripping much of the western and eastern United States. However, there's a curious warm anomaly trying to push through the plains, making its way into the northern United States and southern Canada. It's like a tug-of-war between winter and spring. Overall, the forecast suggests we're in for a colder pattern for the foreseeable future, but don't get too comfortable. Next week, a brief spring wave might just shake things up. Keep an eye on those temperatures. It's going to be an interesting ride. February marks the end of meteorological winter, but winter isn't ready to let go just yet. With just 8 days left on the calendar, a powerful cold wave is sweeping across North America. A high-pressure system looms over Canada, while a strong low-pressure system dives into the eastern United States, creating a fierce northerly flow. This means a significant cold anomaly is gripping the nation, reaching even the southern coast. As this Arctic air mass spreads, we're seeing temperatures plummet. Snowfall is also making its mark, particularly in the Central Plains, although the dry air limits accumulation. The heaviest snow will likely blanket the western elevations, northeastern United States, and upper Midwest. So, while winter may be winding down on paper, it's still delivering a chilling punch across the country. Next week, North America is in for an early taste of spring as a high-pressure ridge sweeps across the United States and Canada, bringing unseasonably warm temperatures. It's a welcome break from the cold, but don't get too comfortable just yet. Early March is lurking with a cold surprise as low-pressure systems are set to return, extending the grip of winter. This persistent cold air transport from the Arctic, fueled by the Polar Vortex, has kept winter alive and well. February may be the last month of meteorological winter, but the reality is that winter is far from over. Enjoy the warmth while it lasts, because those chilly temperatures are just around the corner, reminding us that winter still has a few tricks up its sleeve. Spring 2025 in Europe is shaping up to be quite intriguing, thanks to the unexpected influence of La Niña. Long-range forecasts indicate a dominant high-pressure system over much of the continent, while a low-pressure system lingers in the west and northwest. This pattern is reminiscent of past La Niña springs, which typically bring a mix of weather dynamics during this transitional period from winter to summer. As we move through March, April, and May, we can expect a roller coaster of weather, from sunny days to sudden showers. What's fascinating is that La Niña usually has a subtle impact on European weather, but this year, the forecasts suggest a more pronounced signature. It's a reminder of how interconnected our climate systems are, and how even distant oceanic events can ripple through our seasons. So, keep an eye on the skies. Spring 2025 might just surprise us all. La Niña is set to influence our weather patterns this winter and spring of 2025. As we dive into the data, we can observe some intriguing pressure anomalies. A high-pressure zone is building over Central Europe, pushing eastward, while a low-pressure area lingers in the North Atlantic and the western parts of Europe. This setup typically leads to above-normal temperatures across much of Central, Western, and Southern Europe. However, if you look further north, you'll find cooler temperatures, a direct result of the jet stream shifting northward. This La Niña pattern could mean a spring that feels quite different from what we're used to, with warmer conditions dominating the south and a chillier vibe up north. It's fascinating how these atmospheric changes can shape our seasons. La Niña is shaping the weather patterns across Europe this spring. We're seeing warmer and drier conditions in central and western regions, while the southwest, northwest, and northern areas, along with the Mediterranean, are bracing for increased precipitation. As we step into March, the first month of meteorological spring, the European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts Extended Forecast reveals a fascinating picture. High pressure is dominating Central and Eastern Europe, while a low-pressure zone looms over the North Atlantic and northwestern Europe. This pattern mirrors the typical La Niña influence we've discussed. The surface pressure forecast highlights a significant low-pressure area in the North Atlantic, reinforcing the idea that La Niña is indeed making its presence felt this spring. It's a compelling reminder of how interconnected our weather systems are. Looking at the surface temperature forecast, it's clear we're in for a warmer pattern across much of Central and Northern Europe. This warmth is largely due to a high-pressure zone, combined with a southwestern flow from a low-pressure area in the Atlantic. However, if you're in the southwestern or parts of Central Europe, brace yourself for normal to below normal temperatures. Now let's talk precipitation. March is shaping up to be drier for much of Central Europe and the East, thanks to that same high-pressure influence. But don't put away your umbrellas just yet. The southern, western, and northern regions can expect more rainfall, driven by the low-pressure systems from the North Atlantic and the western Mediterranean. It's a classic case of weather systems at play, creating a diverse climate tapestry across the continent. As we look ahead to spring 2025 in Europe, the forecasts from the European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts and United Kingdom Meteorological Organization models reveal some intriguing patterns. Over the 3 months of March, April, and May, we can expect a notable high-pressure anomaly dominating the region. This is particularly characteristic of a La Niña spring, suggesting that global weather influences are at play. The surface pressure anomaly indicates that while Central Europe will bask in milder conditions, low-pressure systems will linger to the southwest, southeast, and in the north. This setup could lead to warmer temperature anomalies across the west, central, and eastern parts of Europe. However, don't be surprised if occasional Atlantic fronts sweep in from the northwest, bringing some variability to the otherwise stable weather. Overall, it looks like a season of contrasts, with a blend of warmth and the potential for some dynamic weather patterns. The United Kingdom Meteorological Organization model presents an intriguing spring season forecast, showing a high-pressure zone firmly positioned over Western Europe. This setup creates a stark contrast with a low-pressure area lurking over the far North Atlantic. As we look at the temperature predictions, we see a trend toward warmer than normal conditions, particularly in the northern and northeastern parts of the continent. This aligns closely with the ECMWF forecast, suggesting a consistent pattern across models. Interestingly, there's also a hint of a more westerly flow impacting the western and northwestern regions, though the anomaly appears weaker. Overall, it seems like spring is gearing up to be pleasantly warm for much of Europe, setting the stage for a vibrant season ahead. Europe is gearing up for an interesting spring, with forecasts indicating more precipitation across the southwestern, central, and northern regions. This is largely due to a lower surface pressure area settling over southwestern Europe and a broader low-pressure zone hovering over the North Atlantic. Colder temperatures are also in the mix, which could impact snowfall potential as we transition into spring. While we typically associate spring with warmer weather, March can still surprise us with snowfall. However, the latest forecast for March to May 2025 suggests that most of Europe will experience below normal snowfall. This doesn't mean we'll see no snow at all. It just indicates that significant snowfall events will be less frequent than what we've seen over the past 3 decades. Yet, don't underestimate the power of a single cold front. With the right conditions, it can unleash a substantial amount of snow across Central Europe, even if it doesn't reflect in the monthly averages. So keep an eye on the skies. Spring might just have a few surprises in store. The temperature forecast indicates a trend towards warmer than normal conditions across much of the continent, particularly in the northern and northeastern regions. This aligns closely with the European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecast predictions. Interestingly, we're seeing a shift towards a more westerly flow in Western and Northwestern Europe, although the anomaly there is noticeably weaker. When we turn to precipitation, Central and Western Europe are expected to remain mostly dry, thanks to a dominant high-pressure system. In contrast, Northern and Southern Europe will experience increased precipitation this spring, driven by low-pressure systems in both the north and over the Mediterranean. Looking at snowfall, the United Kingdom Meteorological Organization forecast suggests lower than normal snowfall this season, which is consistent with the above-average temperatures and high-pressure dominance. However, northwestern Scandinavia is set to receive more spring snowfall, where cooler temperatures and a low-pressure zone will bring ample precipitation. It's a fascinating weather pattern shaping up across the continent. Spring 2025 in Europe is shaping up to be quite intriguing, thanks to the unexpected influence of La Niña. Long-range forecasts indicate a dominant high-pressure system over the continent, coupled with a low-pressure area in the west and northwest. This pattern is a classic La Niña signature, which we've seen in past seasons. As we transition from winter to summer during the meteorological spring, March, April, and May, we can expect a roller coaster of weather dynamics. Typically, La Niña's effects are subtle in Europe, but this year, the forecasts suggest a more pronounced impact. So, get ready for a spring that could surprise us all, with weather patterns that challenge our expectations and keep us on our toes.